Canada has just altered the game. No cautions, no gradual buildup, simply a barrage of direct strikes that Washington will not ignore. New tolls on U.S. vehicles headed to Alaska, a 25% increase in the price of energy exports to American corporations, and the removal of U.S. booze from British Columbia liquor store shelves. This is not business as usual. Canada is making its position plain. This is not about small trade issues. Canada is creating a new tone in how it interacts with the United States, one that does not presume easy ties or automatic collaboration. What's the message? If Washington presses, Canada will push back where it matters. This isn't simply one province operating alone. There is a pattern forming. Canada's new taxes, levies, and product prohibitions convey a clear message that cannot be ignored. Businesses in the United States that formerly depended on open trade face additional expenses and limitations. 11 American items now face new Canadian tariffs, each directed at companies that rely on cross-border commerce. Goods that once flowed freely are now constrained by greater costs and narrower margins. British Columbia is charging U.S. truckers extra to transport products. Ontario's 25% increase in energy prices is forcing American purchasers to choose between taking the damage or looking elsewhere. Liquor retailers throughout Canada are pulling U.S. brands from their shelves. Businesses that formerly considered Canada as a reliable market are now facing increased costs, disrupted supply chains, and less access. The cost of exporting to Canada is rising, and businesses are adapting quickly. Liquor manufacturers have been among the hardest hit. With U.S. names withdrawn off Canadian shelves, firms that considered Canada as a dependable market are now facing increased costs, disrupted supply chains, and less access. Liquor manufacturers have been among the hardest hit. With U.S. brands banned from Canadian markets, American distilleries and exporters lose a significant cash source. British Columbia has banned all U.S. alcohol from its government-run shops, and other provinces are following suit. American distilleries, vineyards, and breweries will lose one of their largest international markets overnight. Bars, restaurants, and stores that formerly relied on these brands are now obliged to adapt. Canadian imports of American booze were valued at hundreds of millions of dollars each year. Cutting off that supply leads to lost income, extra inventory, and a scurry to find new buyers. Liquor is only one element of the puzzle. Canada is also increasing the cost of getting products over the border, requiring American firms to absorb new tolls and increased transportation costs. Each mile now costs extra. Trucks traveling through British Columbia from the United States are now subject to new tolls that cannot be avoided. For enterprises that rely on cross-border shipping, this is a direct impact. Trucking firms do not operate with large profit margins. Someone needs to make up the difference, and that someone is either the company sending the products or the customer purchasing them. Everything that relies on these channels, including food, raw materials, and technology, has become more expensive. Finding an alternative is not easy. Canada is not only the greatest route for exports to Alaska, but it is also the only viable option. Rerouting via the United States increases travel time and fuel expenses, making tolls necessary. Shipping firms and manufacturers are already making adjustments. Some raise prices, while others reduce shipments. This is more than simply a nuisance. It is an additional financial pressure on various businesses. This toll is only one of numerous measures hindering trade. The next squeeze is already underway. Ontario's energy exports are poised to become 25% more expensive for U.S. purchasers, increasing prices for already struggling firms. Ontario just raised power costs for U.S. customers, and the impacts are immediate. Factories, businesses, and whole states that rely on Canadian energy must now choose whether to pay more or reduce their use. Power going from Ontario to the United States is now more expensive. If the United States intensifies, I will not hesitate to turn off the electricity totally. Only American purchases are impacted. Canadian customers experience no difference. This is not a market fluctuation. It is a policy change. Manufacturing, mining, and processing industries, which rely on steady energy costs, are among the most impacted. With no fast fixes, many will bear the expenses for the time being, but long-term changes are on the way. Not every state in the United States will have the same level of effect. Who was hit the hardest? Red states have high energy demands and face direct trade issues with Canada. The Midwest manufacturing states, such as Michigan and Minnesota, rely on Ontario power. With a 25% price increase, industries and enterprises are seeing prices rise overnight. Kentucky and Tennessee, home to the United States bourbon industry, are losing a valuable export market as Canadian liquor retailers remove American brands from their shelves. Last year, Canada imported more than $43 million worth of Kentucky whiskey, a market that is suddenly drying up. New York and other border states rely on efficient trade with Canada. With additional transportation fees and delays, the cost of carrying products is rising, which has a direct impact on local economies. The trend is evident. Canada is targeting the regions that rely the most on its market. These are also the places that backed previous U.S. tariffs and trade restrictions on Canadian exports. Mark Carney has made it plain that Canada is going on without relying on the United States. Carney is not simply discussing tariffs or energy plans. He is sketching out a strategy to remove Canada's reliance on the U.S. economy entirely. This includes new trade agreements that shift exports and imports away from the United States and stronger domestic industries to replace American goods and services. Long-term economic planning presupposes that Washington's policies will continue to change. For decades, Canada's economy was based on strong links to the United States. Carney is planning for a future in which those relationships are no longer trustworthy. Businesses are being told to react, supply networks are being rebuilt, and economic policies are being revised to prioritize stability over U.S. trade cycles. Fewer Canadians cross the border. Fewer people are scheduling trips to the United States. Businesses in American border communities are already experiencing the effects. Cross-border travel has long been an important aspect of the economy of U.S. states neighboring Canada. However, travel numbers are declining. Fewer day excursions, fewer shopping trips, and fewer Canadian cash entering U.S. stores, motels, and restaurants. Retailers in border communities rely on Canadian customers. Tourism firms in American cities rely on Canadian visitors. Airlines and travel firms that operate on international routes. The influence extends beyond the immediate area. Canada is one of the United States' most important sources of overseas tourists. A protracted decline in travel leads to lost income, job cutbacks, and economic changes in places that rely on Canadian spending. With economic pressures mounting, this pattern is unlikely to change soon. If spending continues to migrate inside, more U.S. firms will be forced to respond. The trade repercussions are extending beyond products. It is now influencing how money flows across borders. Trade disputes between the United States and Canada have occurred previously. But this time, is the harm permanent? Are we dealing with a short-term dispute? Is this the beginning of a long-term economic divide? With Canada reducing its reliance on the United States and American firms experiencing the effects, is the old trade relationship dead? Please share your opinions on where you see this headed, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.